So team, following on from that introduction about performance models, we're going to look now into the specifics around the coach performance. The coach performance model, as we can see here, let's have a chat and have a look about what the 6 different components are. Obviously, most importantly, we're talking about the coach, the individual that we're working with. We talk about the performance culture. We talk about the 6 performance domains. So we're going to break those down into a bit more detail for you. We talk about the performance environments, so the environments in which we are performing. We talk about our systems intelligence that feeds into the environments to ensure that they're an informed environment. And the last one, as we talk about, is systems leadership. So we'll break down each of these sections. The coach, the center of everything that we do within our performance model for coaches is the coach. We need to embrace it as a holistic approach where we focus on the person first. We need to remember that the coach is a person who has a family, maybe a husband or wife, son or a daughter, has family, other commitments. So we need to also remember that, when we're dealing with the coach, we're dealing with them as a person. We need to look at them as individuals. Every coach has different strengths, different values. They all bring something different to the table. And yes, one or two coaches may coach the same sport, but it's important that we look at the way in which we treat them as individuals based on their strengths. We also need to recognise that coaches are probably the most critical relationship to the athlete, other than obviously the individual's family. But in terms of a sport context, the relationship of the coach to the athlete is quite important. And we need to make sure that as part of our system, that we are putting the right people, the right culture and the right environment around the coach in order to support them, so the coach feels that they're being invested in to get the great success for them to be able to help the athletes. And importantly, I think to understand athletes and coaches as we see, as individuals, importantly, we need to talk about the coach in asking them what their goal and vision and aims are within their program. I think sometimes we just sort of divert that attention directly to athletes, and perhaps we don't get that chance to reflect with the coach about what they're personally trying to strive as a coach in their career. When we talk about performance culture, this is something I think is quite important to differentiate between what we see in traditions and cultures within different countries. When we're talking about performance culture, we're really talking about the environment in which we perform. So for us, we really talk about what's called a values-based culture. So what you can see here in the diagram, and I'll give you a chance to sort of pause the video if you'd like, have a chance to read through some of these values, but it's based around respect, the acronym of respect. So are we reliable? Do we strive for excellence? Do we understand servant leadership? Serving others is a way of leadership. Are we being purposeful? Do we understand our purpose and what our mission is? Are we empowering those, including ourselves and others around us, to be able to create the right culture? Do we collaborate? So do we look for opportunities externally from our own teams and organisation to be able to collaborate? And then finally, what about our internal teamwork? How do we work together as a team? So once we understand those values-based environment that we're looking for to create the right performance culture, then what we're supporting the coach with is a space in which they can feel safe, welcome, they feel safe to learn, but they also know that they're going to be inspired. There's a way in them for them to feel empowered to be able to do the role that they need to do as a coach. So getting into the next level of the performance model, we talk about what's called performance domains. So these are 6 key areas that we've identified through reading a number of research articles, looking at international coaching frameworks that break down. These are sort of the 6 key performance domains that coaches need to develop their experience, skills and knowledge in. So let's have a look. First one, leadership. It's really important that we understand coaches as leaders. They're leading a program, they're leading themselves, they're leading groups of athletes. So it's really important that we help develop the leadership skills of our coaches. Towards the end of this presentation, I'll show you the framework that breaks down what are the different aspects of each of those performance domains. Example, but there being leadership. The next one we talk about is performance review. So as a coach, how do we actually look at reviewing performances? How do we look at reviewing the performances of our program for the year, individual athletes or teams at performance environments such as a competition? We need to develop the coach's skills in those areas. Athlete preparation. There's a big role that the coach plays, but the coach also needs to work with other multidisciplinary team members to be able to support the athlete preparation. It's everything that we talk about with strength and conditioning, nutrition, psychology, injury rehabilitation, injury management. Those are the sort of areas that we talk about within athlete. Talent pathway. Currently coaches are working with a national squad. We understand that there needs to be some type of pathway for emerging athletes to come into that program. So it's really important that we work with coaches to understand what we're looking at within a talent pathway program, coaches that operate within those emerging athlete programs and younger athletes and the things that are challenging them to be able to move and progress through individual pathways for those. When we talk about coaching practices, we're really talking about a range of things that relate to the technical, the tactical, and then some of the general practices that coaches would have in order to generally apply the principles and skills of being a coach. And then lastly, we talk about performance planning. We need to make sure that the coaches have got really good skill set around how they would plan different aspects of their program. At a macro level, what does their annual plan look like? Right down to an individual session. What are we going to do in today's session, planning what that skill session may look like. So as we move into the performance environments now, we're sort of looking at now, okay, what are the environments in which the coach and the athlete engage with each other? And particularly, where would the coach apply those 6 performance domains that we just spoke about? So we look at a few different areas. One performance environment is really in that pathway environment. So whether that be in junior programs, whether that be in domestic programs, whether that be in provincial programs, what are the pathway opportunities that we see that coaches need to be working with other coaches or other athletes in those pathway environments? Then when we talk about the daily training environment, this is what the environment in which the coach is operating himself or herself with the squad that they're directly responsible for. So when we talk about that normal training environment, as you can imagine, some type of training venue, there would be other support staff, range of athletes. How do we interact with all those people to make sure that we get the best out of that daily training environment, which then prepares us for the next one, which is the daily competition. So what we would try to do is ensure that there is some similarities between what we do in training to what we do in the competition environment to make sure that those interactions are as normal as possible for both the coach and the athlete, providing them with a similar level of support services, equipment, access to support, the things that they need in order to be able to transfer what we did at training into the competition environment. Then we're looking at now the sort of the 5th level of component that goes in our performance model is what we call our systems intelligence. So the systems intelligence really looks at where's our knowledge, all of our capability and expertise that strategically come together to inform the environments in which our athletes and coaches interact. So one of the key things that we look at, the acronym we talk about, RIT, research, innovation and technology. We'd all agree that we need to make sure that there's areas of where coaches are researching up-to-date practices for coaches, looking at innovative ways in which we're coaching, and then technology. For example, how do we use video, or how do we use some of the other measurables that we use through technology that can apply into the coaching. The other part of what we look at is our DIMS. So what's our data intelligence management system doing? So these are the different digital platforms that we've used to be able to capture the data that's done around training, competition, the administration and management of the athletes that can help support and inform what we do in the environment. Sometimes we know that so much information is required and coaches are taken away from their job of being the coach to some of these other roles. And we hope that using the DIMS will allow them to be able to have access to that data readily available to help inform the environment, but also the support staff around the coach that's there to help in the daily training environment to be able to provide up-to-date information that we need. And the last one is what we call STEP, our Sports Training Education Program. This is really where we're looking at building the capacity and the knowledge in the people that work in those different performance environments. What are we doing around anti-doping education? What are we doing to educate the coaches about athlete wellbeing? What are we doing to help the coaches learn more about sports science and high performance practice? So this is where we use our sports training education program to really build in that knowledge and skill into the coaches to develop more competency for them to be able to do their job better. And altogether that works as our systems intelligence. Lastly, we're going to just talk about the most external layer and one of the most important in terms of our system leadership. Really the key areas that we're looking at here is who are the different program partners that support what we do within our program. So as a whole system, we're looking at organisations such as government, so that can be the National Sports Council, that can be different ministries of sport, that can be other government ministries such as health and education that work with sport. We also then look at other program partners like Olympic committees, Paralympic committees. These organisations are responsible for Team Solomon or the like that go to these large multi-sport international games. We need to make sure that those as program partners are involved. And then we've also got national federations, a very, very key strategic partner that's in our programs that we need to make sure that as those sort of partnerships are working together, balance that with some of our external partners such as sponsors or stakeholders that provide in-kind or cash support to support the national federation's programs to be able to do that. So there's a number of different program partners that work together. What we need to do is then balance that with a plan. So the partners have all got different concepts and contributions to the system, but we need to then strategically work together through a plan. So we call that our performance enhancement plan. How are we able to roadmap the way in which we strategically align all those program partners and objectives of the program for whatever particular sport it may be, to ensure that we've got all of those strategies aligned towards the right direction. And then to do that, to activate that plan, we need good people. And key people that we talk about, particularly where it might be administration or executive committees, we've got our coaching and athlete support staff, we've got athletes, we've got families and external people, volunteers and managers that all sort of support what the plan's objectives are about. And then ultimately we hope that through those sort of areas working together, we create a really good, strong profile for the sport, building that brand recognition, building that credibility, building that awareness in the community about the contribution sport does make to the country, bringing pride to the nation. And we do that through building a strong profile. We do that through athletes being recognised. We do that through social media platforms. We do that sometimes through normal mediums, newspapers, TV, radio. But any way that we can build a profile that brings credibility back to the contribution of what the program partners are investing into, which then links into the plan developed by the people. We build a stronger brand. We know obviously that success breeds success too. So having a strong brand that represents that success in life and sport is really important. So wrapping that together, what you can see here is how all six elements of the um, performance model now coming together and identifies each of those six different components that have a pretty strong dependency on each other. Make sure that each layer is working. Again, starting out with the coach being the center of our attention and what we're doing with our coach. Last slide here, really for this coach performance model, is talking about the framework that goes under each of those six different performance domains. We spoke a bit about the athlete preparation, coach practices, performance planning, performance review, talent pathways, and then leadership. So what you can see there from the framework is it's worth reading through what the definition is for each of those performance domains, and then understanding the subcategories that go into each of those different performance domains. So if you can see there under the athlete preparation area, we're talking about physical preparation, mental preparation, and what we do with athlete well-being and lifestyle, which all link into what we do for the athlete preparation area. So hopefully that will give you a bit of an overview of the coach performance model. We understand that there's quite a bit of detail there, but it just gives a bit of a background as to how we've been able to develop something that supports the coach performance model, something that's actually going to support coaches in an applied practice setting, something that we think is really important, that we're very deliberate about the way in which we can invest in developing our coaches. We're going to move on then to the part three, which is going to talk about the